The views and opinions expressed in these historical letters that may contain vernacular used in the World War II era, the post-war era, and the Cold War era do not reflect the views and opinions of any of the individuals involved with this project, including, but not limited to, the podcast's creators. Morning, Jamie.
Good morning, Allison.
How are you doing this morning?
It's a morning. I have coffee. Do you have coffee?
I do. I have refilled my coffee. I decided to finally get out because I just love this color. This is actually a mug intended for tea. I got this at the Japanese Tea Garden in Portland, Oregon. But I love it. And then I remembered I saw this color. I'm like, that matches my jacket. So I'm going to use the blossoms.
It definitely matches my shirt, too.
Mm-hmm.
And you know how I feel about things that match.
Mm-hmm.
It means that all is right with the world.
There it is.
I had to break out the Love Sweetie mug.
That one your sister made for you, right? And gave for Christmas?
I had to, yes, because like the chicken cups I use sometimes. The blue one did not get washed. So that's the one that matches this one. But yes, so I have my Love Sweetie coffee mug.
Mm-hmm.
And I, today, get to read the letters first time with everybody because I'm lazy and did not read my letters in advance of this episode. I'm sorry.
So we'll get Jamie's genuine reactions to the stories that Sweetie's telling. We'll get to that in a moment. We just had a really great episode. The previous episode, Sweetie's kind of in her groove, like she's fighting things outside. It's springtime, but Chester's seemingly doing okay, and she's demanding letters, and she's kind of back to normal. However, her world's going, so she's working on a lot of different things there. Just before we get started with today's letters, a little bit of housekeeping. If you could please like, share, and subscribe to the Love Sweetie podcast on YouTube. If you're listening to this podcast on an audio platform like Apple Podcasts or Spotify, by all means, please follow, download, whatever it is that you do frequently on those audio channels to be able to follow the podcast and get the updates. New episodes are out every Sunday. And then, of course, check out our website at www.lovesweetiepodcast.com. Jamie, I think we'll just jump into the first letter here and continue on with Sweetie's story. 363 North Main Street, Doylesburg, Pennsylvania, April 8th, 1952. Dear Jeanne and Glenn, Mama and Papa, and all the ships at sea. Just as I thought, I need only complain about not having any mail, and I get 3 letters all at once, from Jeanne. That is fine, except for one thing. I'm usually so anxious to find out what the next letter is going to say. I read so fast I don't know what I've read and have to read them all several times before I've gotten the full impact of the letters. I'm not complaining. Rather, I'll complain some more if it will bring another landslide like this one. First off, I'm returning the poems you sent me to copy. Now, Mama, if you'll send me the one about the looking glass, I'll have copies of all I've, you should excuse the expression, written. Thank you, Jeanne, for the trouble, and as I said, I'm sending these back to you with this letter. Thank you, too, for the Easter contribution for Louis. I've already bought all I intend to, as he usually gets something from Elizabeth and G-Mom, and since I'm dieting and get left out of the loot this year, I'm afraid there'll just be too much candy for him to manage alone, and I wonder how I'll ever muster up enough willpower to keep out of it. Now, to comment on some comments in your letters. I am sorry you had to get sick with a cold to get off work, but since you've been off for so long, how come I've only had these few letters from you? Make it good now. I guess you probably didn't feel much like working, but on the other hand, you probably did a lot of housework that was actually harder than writing letters. Like I say, as long as I keep writing letters, I can write and write without getting many an answer. But slack up a little, and I usually get a bunch, most of them giving me the very devil for not writing. But letters anyway. I'm glad you can make frequent trips home to Lacona, usually brief, I'm sure, but a visit anyway. How was Mama? I guess with warmer weather on the road, that Papa is finding more and more to do outside. That is the way it is here, at least. I just hope he will go at it gradually, and with some temperance. I wish I could have gone with you and Sister on her shopping excursion. I got 2 packages of portulaca, and also some seed from Sister for melons, and something else very fine. Was that the rose moss unlabeled? I've already written to you that I'm afraid I'll have to concentrate my efforts on cleaning and such this year, rather than try to get a bunch of flower beds made. I am hampered right now by cold and rain and too damp ground, but hope to get some inside work done so I can get back out there when the sun shines again. I thought it was going to shine brightly this morning, but it has already hid its head behind the clouds. I've already written you about the rings arriving and that they fit fine. I'm loath to take my own ring off, do so for outside work and shoveling, etc. Lou wears the one Glenn made all the time and seems to like it very much. I like mine too, but surely you can understand my reluctance to take off the real one. I shall try to find one to make the right size for Glenn to make one for Louis, if you don't think it is too much of an imposition to ask him to. That reaching for the cheaper envelopes was really no joke, but a fact. However, I feel I use so many of them that I might as well economize in buying the cheaper ones. And now I usually buy 3 or 4 bundles of them at a time. You'd be surprised how fast the pile diminishes, too. As far as getting ready for Easter is concerned, yes and no. I've bought a few little things to make the usual Easter basket for Louis, and I'm sorely tempted to go buy him a new pair of shoes, since the only pair he has is showing much wear. The other day I noticed the sole ripped loose from one, and it was lap-lapping at the floor with each step, so I rushed him uptown at his lunchtime and got the shoe man to stitch it back. But for myself, I don't. I thought the Swabby's penicillin shot just too good to keep to myself, and it really was the truth. I shall save the article on the new cure for poison ivy, but am somewhat doubtful that it is available to the general public. I'm going to buy some more of the weed killer that Papa sent me, have already bought the spray gun for it, and hope to kill out the big granddaddy patch at the garage. I've about got the best of the stuff up close to the clothesline and around the yard. At least I think I have, until I begin to notice more of it. Yeah, so we get our first updates from the letters here, and it's a lot of updates on some of the content we've encountered in the last couple of letters and things like that. It was really interesting to me that one of our listeners on YouTube put a comment in about the rose moss. And for a little bit there, I was like, how do I respond to this? Because they brought up what they thought the proper name of rose moss was, and I knew this letter was coming up. So for that listener, who I'm sure is going to be listening to this episode, you were absolutely right. She gives the name portulaca, if I'm saying that correctly. That's the rose moss. And I was like, validation from Sweetie in a couple letters. So I'm just going to let Sweetie do it without commenting too much on that. But yeah, it's really great. I love to see that engagement with the listeners who are paying attention to those things. And yeah, I guess if anybody else is listening for that or looking for something, there you go.
Now, she did say, and now with this letter, of course, there's all the content she's, answering. She's obviously answering some letters.
Mm-hmm.
But you'll notice, and we definitely want to show more of the original letters this season. Mm-hmm. With this letter, she is just boom, 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 boom. This isn't like a long dump of what's going on in her head. She's not in some kind of free flow state. She's answering a bunch of letters, and she's addressing people's questions. Mm-hmm. And you can see that. I love the fact that she brought up the rings again, because that was so cool to see those rings. And it's always neat to have that physical evidence from the letters in your hands, and to see that. I really, really enjoyed that. I'm really glad that her and Glenn have have a relationship now. It was a little rocky. Like, it was good in the beginning because she was spending time with him. She was out in Iowa. She was, like, getting to know him.
Mm-hmm.
Then Glenn and Jeanne came out, sometime later, and she, just saw some of Glenn that she didn't like.
Yeah.
So now I'm really glad that this reconciled itself, and that they're getting to be, form this relationship.
Mm-hmm.
So it is Easter time. You notice how Lewis only has one pair of shoes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Especially for little ones because they grow so fast.
Mm-hmm.
But instead of buying him another pair, she went and had his repaired.
Yeah. She's going to the shoe man. That was the thing in the times. A lot of people, especially with kids, we were talking about that in another episode. There's a lot of old portraits of children in like the 19th century that are always barefoot. And everybody else is dressed up to the nines, but the kids are barefoot. It just made no sense to get all these shoes made all the time. But yeah, I love that she's going to the repairman for it. And you say the laughing as he's moving around. It's like, oh, we gotta get that fixed. He's gonna start tripping. He's running around the yard, probably getting into that poison ivy a little bit. Yeah, Easter is definitely coming up. But then there's one other section here. It seems like Jean's been sick, something like that. Someone's been sick, but because she's missing some letters. Maybe it's not Jeanne because Jeanne sent like 3, but she's commenting on a lack of letters from someone. So we'll see. And then we get to the penicillin shot reference. That was in a previous episode. I guess just nobody reacted to that. She said this now multiple times in letters, been like, really? Not a chuckle from anyone about that little story? I think it's really bothering her.
Yeah, she's like, this is really funny. Oh, she got all of her poems too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so she's getting all of her poems compiled. We know she wanted to do that and compile some poems. But yeah, so this seems like she's just answering a bunch of stuff. So we're getting a ton of information.
I was glad to find your second letter said the folks had not gone to Chicago, as I'd just sent out the flowers to them. I did not buy the flowers as you may think from the box. I picked them from our side yard, but bought the box to send them. I'm most curious to get your reaction. She was mentioning in the last letter, I'm going to interject here, the extra extravagant airmail item that she'd sent in the package and why she wanted to get there quickly. It was the flowers in the box.
Oh, do you think that she put a bunch of tiger lilies in there?
I think she did. It's either that or they all went in the well. I was most sorry to hear that Uncle Cyril had been hurt again. I wish somebody had the particulars to write. I believe I'll try writing to him at the Johnson County Hospital, as he may be tired and bored with inactivity, as Papa gets. If you get any news, write to me, won't you? And of course, if you get word from Clarissa, I'll be anxious to hear of that too. Those knots on the package were not Lou's, but mine. I'm getting pretty good too, aren't I? Didn't you get any candy? I hoped you would be able to share it, as I thought, when I sent it, that the folks were still at your place. Didn't you get a copy about the candy? I'll send you one. Copy of the poem, that is, if you want it. The diet you sent is not a yellow book, but just a printed sheet of paper. I suspect you got it from the Des Moines Register, and along with it you sent me some exercises for reducing the bulges in places and encouraging them in others. Ain't I indelicate? I can't see any weight reduction at all, yet. Mama will remember how I starved and didn't lose an ounce by the scales. Well, I'm not starving this time, but I'm not losing weight either. I do feel better, along with the fact that I'm getting up earlier in the mornings and working outside as much as the house will let me. I don't think it is so bad if you're both fat, but for Lou to be so thin and me so fat, well, it looks terrible, and it makes me feel worse. I'm going to try some of Florence's push-ups and general calisthenics to see if that won't help some too. I've already wrote you that I'm doing it without the little pills on general willpower and determination. How long will it last? I remain optimistic. Perhaps I confused you in saying the door faced south. You remember, we have 2 side doors, one on the south and one on the north, but the north door has a porch. Remember, while this south door opens up onto the brick wall with the cave just at hand. After so carefully writing about Dr. Gilbreth on TV, didn't I go and forget the whole thing myself? I could have kicked me all over this end of town, but there it is. I'm sorry I had to ask you to return the film of the bar so quickly. But since the swabby was somewhat reluctant to let us send it in the first place, and since we knew as soon as we saw his camera that we didn't want it, I felt I should make every effort to get it back. I'd hoped El Gumpo and Dee could have seen it, but that is too bad. Did you buy a new movie screen? I don't remember your writing about it, but wonder if it might have been a Christmas gift. All right, and I just want to clarify something here immediately when this appears in the letters, because it will keep appearing in the letters. This is not anything derogatory here. This is a nickname for one of her nieces. So El Gumpo and Dee is in reference to two of Sister's children, Lizzie's kids. The nickname for little M in particular, who's been referenced in letters before, is Goomper. So that's why she's using the term El Gumpo. Well, that is about all for Jeanne, except this. Your letter sent airmail on April 4th got here on April 7th in our noon delivery. You ought to look about the day you're sending airmail. It doesn't pay to send a letter off on Friday, airmail. A letter mailed Thursday airmail should get here Saturday, or so I think. I can figure 2 days for airmail. It takes about 8 hours to fly from Des Moines to Philadelphia. Passenger service, that is. Cargo would require less time. But our local delivery is something out of this world. An article came out in the paper that mailed in the box, just outside the door of the post office here in town, didn't get delivered to local people until Tuesday. Mailed on Saturday afternoon here in town and wasn't delivered here in town until Tuesday afternoon. Don't seem right to me. I just received Papa's letter postmarked April 5th in Lacona at 3 p.m. Arrived here at the 8th on our noon delivery. Thank you for the bribe money, Papa. We'll write you further about this. I don't think I shall go into detail on your letter today, possibly tomorrow, and answer your questions on your questionnaire. I can't even spell right now, as I've already made this the 3rd page, and I've got clothes on the line that look as though they may be dampened by Ma Nature before I can get them in. And much work to do, anyway, as I want to get things pretty well in line, so as to spend some time with Louis while he is on vacation. I'm going to send Papa Louis's number paper he brought home this noon. Save it, will you? As I'd like to compile a scrapbook one of these days. I've tried to save most all his papers. I must stop, as Miss Darst carefully locked Louis out and came upstairs, and he'll be using a battering ram on it if I don't get it opened. Peek, here comes the sun, so I'd better be about the usual grind and get as much done as I can. Oh, yes, I went to the sale yesterday and bought a beautiful pair of Bristol glass bottles, delicately decorated. Paid quite a bit for them, $8 for the pair, may get $10 apiece for them, from the right buyer. And also bought 20 cans of assorted fruits and vegetables, home-canned quart jars, and got them for 6 cents apiece. They look good, but the proof of the pudding, you know? Even if it isn't all good, it is still cheap, isn't it? Helps out on the grocery bill. I got hooked into taking Miss Darst shopping with me one day, and she was amazed to find the prices of food so much higher than when she was buying. And she isn't quite so critical anymore. On that score, at least. We'll try to write again in a day or so, and do justice to Papa's letter and answer the questions as fully as I can. Time and energy have left me at this point, and so I shall down a cup of tea and get the dishes done and get under way, for there is much more to do, and so little time to do it in. Love to everybody. Sweetie. Glenn, did you get my letter written to you at work? Jeanne didn't mention it, nor did she comment on the things in it, and I'm curious to know whether you do or do not agree with me on points. I guess about the best thing to do is just to keep quiet and let him do as he will. There doesn't seem to be anything else to do anyway, but hope that it doesn't kill the doll first, as she worries about him and tries to keep up with him. Papa didn't mention Uncle Cyril's accident, and so I don't suppose he knew it. Hope I haven't upset the apple cart, if he wasn't supposed to know. You know that even though Papa is Papa, he is also a man with a man's ego, and no man will allow a pipsqueak of a daughter to give him what for anything, and surely will not allow her to tell him what he should do or should not do. You insult his ego, and that is an unforgivable sin, with Papa, or any man for that matter. It is probably a good thing I'm as far away as I am, where that is concerned, for surely I'd have given him some lip, and had it thrown back at me. I know it is hard, but you see, you're taking my share, too, when he gives it back. He doesn't write me a scolding, but I can read between the lines. You get it on the chin. Love, Sweetie.
I always pick good times to not read letters.
It was interesting when you were talking about her relationship with Glenn in the first portion of this letter, and I'm like, oh, here it comes. And then I saw, as you realized it was continuing into a note to Glenn in this one. Yeah, it's absolutely, she's fixed things up. Now, the letter that we're talking about, the letter to Glenn, is in the one that it's in the episode that Jamie named so appropriately, Please Hold for the Night Shift. So I'm going to put that up on the screen. If you're wondering and didn't get to listen to that episode, go back and listen to that episode. It's very, very important. It's at the time period where they're very worried about Chester's health. But I love that she ends this letter with this, that there's, again, she's checking in with her relationship with Glenn and a whole bunch of other updates through the end of the letter.
Oh yeah, this is definitely, like I said, this is a lot of stuff in one little letter. Mm-hmm. But I do want to talk about her and Glenn and what she just wrote to him, because you had mentioned too, when we were all collectively like worried about Chester, Sweetie wrote to Jeanne and Glenn, mm-hmm. and you said that they seem to form, there's this like inner circle that we're talking about Chester and what's going on with Chester, because we remember Frank went from Chicago to Lacona to see him and be like, what's going on, and like talk to him. So it just, with Chester, I still feel there's not this sense of oh, we've gotten past the worst. There's this sense of the worst is yet to come. Yep. Like this was something that's let us know that he's not doing well. Mm-hmm. And even though he's like, I'm fine, she picks up beautifully. She's like, you cannot insult a man's ego. Mm-hmm. She knows Chester is this way through and through. And she knows that she says to Glenn, I'm out here and he's not scolding me, but I can tell. She's like, you are the one taking the brunt of his anger.
Absolutely. And, I know people are going to have a lot of questions about like, how is Chester really doing? Are there any indicators post this most recent episode where he was very unwell? I can confirm still at this time, based on future content that I know is coming up, he is still self-medicating with morphine at this time, that he is secretly prescribing to himself as the town doctor. So, especially for our newer listeners that are like, this Chester character is very interesting. He is the real Dr. House. He is a diagnostician who is secretly prescribing himself morphine so he can self-medicate his pain away. And that is continuing, and I will tell you now, throughout all of 1952. This is not going to end in 1952. So just keep in the back of your minds, this is still going on, and it's going to continue until the summer of 1953. So I'll add that reminder every now and then when questions about Chester come up. We are going to see the resolution of this by the end of season 3, but not for a while. But yeah, and Sweetie's aware of this for sure. And the inner circle, I honestly do think that was the main network. I mean, it was Chester and Laura staying with Jeanne. Jeanne's a nurse. Jeanne has the connections to the hospitals in Des Moines. She's reporting back to Sweetie. Frank is checking in. Lizzie, I think, is somewhat disconnected simply because I've read enough of the letters to be able to tell that this like communications group is primarily between those three. And of course, then I think Lizzie is being informed. But Lizzie has her hands full on the farm with Bill and 4 kids immediately close. So she can visit, but the communications and the main decisions seem to be made between this group of 3. And the doll being referenced, I believe, is Laura. That Laura's having to put up with everything. And she always has. So it's the first time we've ever heard that name.
This is, I was wondering who that was, and I was assuming, but I wasn't sure. And
I think,
it's unfortunate, but like we're getting these little bits and pieces of it, so we're kind of keeping an eye on like how that's going. So too, there was a couple of other things that I definitely. So we always talk about how communications are different. We have email, everything's instantaneous. Allison and I are talking to each other, like we get together and have like little conversations and we talk to each other, and you can do that. Back then you had mail. So for the fact that there is an article written in the paper about like the mail not getting out. Like,
she was already upset. She was upset at that Hatboro postman, and now we're upset at the post office in Doylestown.
Oh, and she said Doylesburg in the beginning. That made me laugh so much. And she did it with an H too.
Yep.
She wrote that H on the
Doylesburg. Yeah. So.
You include that H. Pittsburgh is with a GH at the end.
Well, there is a Pittsburgh. I think it's in Mississippi. With
it's
just
not real.
C.
No, that's not the real Pittsburgh.
I am aware of this because there's a Civil War history, Pittsburgh Landing. I'm just saying, there's like a thing. It's in the book, and I always know it's one or the other. But yeah.
Well, Greensburg, which is outside of Pittsburgh, it doesn't have an H on it. Yeah. I had to learn how to spell. I forget that H, and I had to learn how to spell it or be tormented and ridiculed. It's special. Like a thing here. You can't. It's like walking around in Cincinnati Bengals gear in downtown Pittsburgh. It's just something you just don't do. And then Miss Darst.
Yeah.
The little wake-up call for Miss Darst and inflation.
Yeah, inflation.
She's like, that is not how much things cost back in my day.
Friendly libertarian reminder in this episode. Remember, the dollars. What is it? Spike Cohen says the dollar is depreciating like in an infinitesimal small amount every single second as we're talking because of inflation. Hate that. So, inflation.
Inflation.
Yeah, there it is.
Staring down the black abyss that we are all heading towards in very, very tiny increments. Yes. So, but I thought this was really fun. This is a good one. I'm glad I didn't read it.
Yeah.
I love how she talks about mall nature all the time. That's hilarious. But yeah, so they're getting ready for Easter. She's still thinking about, like I've got to get. She didn't ask them to come out again.
No.
There was no talk about like trips or anything like that. So that's kind of weird. So we'll see. So, but she's just, she's in a really good place right now. Yeah, she's like working outside. She feels good. She's like, I'm doing things to try to make myself healthier, which is so important. And I so appreciate that. And she's also not taking pills to help her, which if it's something that you need, I'm not ever going to judge anybody for like taking care of their health. Like however you need to take care of your health. Because I know there's a lot of talk about like this Ozempic and GLP-1s and all that kind of stuff right now. So, I think everybody needs to make decisions about their own body because they know it the best. And so to see her be like, I'm outside, I'm exercising, I'm enjoying myself, I feel good. And she's still a little bit on there, which is unfortunate to see. I don't think that this is the kind of way that we deal with these problems and deal with these situations in today's world. So it's, it's good to see like how things were back in the day, but I do appreciate, and I'm really glad that she's feeling good.
Yeah. She feels good about herself. Yeah.
Right. Exactly. So I'm hoping that continues. I'm hoping that, and I hope it's not tied to the weather.
Right. Yeah. She is happy she's outside for sure.
Right. So, but yeah, so we're getting some good stuff. She's getting all of her letters in and we're plugging right along.
I did want to note here, before we jump into the next item, Jamie.
Okay.
Let's talk about Easter 1952. I'm just going to give the date of it just for context because this is going to come up again at the end of the episode. Easter is going to happen on Sunday, April 13th. So the next item we're looking at here is on the 17th. So Easter has passed at this point. I just wanted to call that out. But we have a little bit of a fun game here that we're going to play. So Chester's going to send a postcard to Jeanne on April 17th. This one has not been narrated because it is 2 sentences and it's very just dry informational. But decoding Chester's handwriting is a lot of great fun and looking at some of these items. So I'm going to bring up on the screen the front and back of the penny postal card. And also I realized we have an issue with the penny postal cards in 1952. And we'll share that little piece of postal history in this episode. And we can tell this from the front of the postcard, actually. So this is Chester writing to Mrs. Glenn O. Joss, or Jeanne, at 1341 West 14th Street in Des Moines. And I want to look at the stamps here. And the issue is, it's a penny postal card. with 2 stamps. It cost 2 cents. And
so it's not a penny postal card.
Yep, they're still using the penny postal cards physically, but on January 1st of 1952, the price was increased to 2 cents, which is why we see the pre-printed, because it was pre-printed, you can see the green. I'll put this one up on the website so people can see this, but for our audio listeners as well. In the corner, there's a pre-printed 1 cent stamp, and then next to it is an actual 1 cent stamp to cover the other cost. On top of that is the cancellation to make sure that these are not being reused. So it says Lacona, April 17th at 3 p.m. We have the time in Iowa. And then on the right-hand side, we see this odd-looking shape appearing on the penny postal card, which is now the 2 cent penny postal card. And I was looking this up because I'm like, what is that thing called? It sort of looks like a football on the right-hand side of the postmark, because we don't see this today. It is preventing the reuse. But that was called an obliterator. Isn't that interesting?
An obliterator.
Obliterator. I'm like, of all the names that they could give it, the Postal Service decided to put some interesting verbiage in here. So this is called a numeral duplex cancellation. So that's the technical term. So the duplex is because you have the circle with Lacona on April 17th. But then the piece on the right is called the obliterator, or it was called a killer.
Wow. It sounds to me like these people were like, had nothing else going on, and they're like, we're going to obliterate. And then they put a stamp on something.
Yeah. So if you look up obliterators for countries, the one definitely stands for something particular. I'm going to have to ask some of the philatelic societies and those groups about what the number 1 specifically is referencing here, but there's like usually a number or a country code or something like that that goes in the center. And then this particular shape, because I'm like, well, they had to give a name to the shape, is called the shoe print killer, because it's got those lines and it looks like a shoe print, which if you Google shoe print killer was actually apparently like a serial killer, I think in the 80s. So like that is not what is being meant here. Because if you look up shoe print killer, yeah, what comes up is a 1980s Southern California serial killer known as the Night Stalker. So when you Google this, make sure you put postmark next to it, and then it'll bring up the football cancellation or the shoe print. So just to be clear there, if people are doing some independent research on the subject. But yeah, I thought that was fascinating that all of a sudden we go to 2 cents on the penny postal cards, and then we have these very violent terms from the postal service.
They just, I have to, like, the people, like, you couldn't just call it a football stamp or something. I don't know, like the obliterator. We have to kill this because inflation has made everything more expensive now. But I do love this because April 17th is my birthday, and it's a Chester postcard.
Yep.
And that G is just a thing of beauty, but that J, I am so upset about, because J, I love my J's. My J's are very pretty.
This is a long J.
That is a weird looking J, Chester. So this was the front of the postcard.
Yeah. And also Chester can't seem to decide if on the front he wants to write in cursive or print. Halfway through.
He's used to writing Demaree. Joss is still weird for him.
Maybe that's it. Yeah.
You know, because remember he reused an envelope with her maiden name on it, and Laura's like, Glenn is probably not going to like that. And he's like, Glenn, what will Glenn do? And she's like, laugh at it. So, but yeah, he definitely was like, I think he has some trouble still with Joss. So
then I'll bring up the other side of this so we can see the message from Chester. And here it is. All right. So he writes Lacona, Iowa. Again, the A of Iowa is kind of like a little heart, and I is very loopy. That's an interesting I. April 17, 1952. Dear Jeanne, Jeanne spelled without the N-E. He's always going to use the 4-letter Jane, even though her formal spelling is Jeanne. And it says, please. That first word is a please, even though the P is totally separated and detached from the L-E-A-S-E. So please tell, even though it has a dot for no reason, Lizzie, that Frank has postponed his coming to see us. Now, the word after us is not a word. That's the and sign. That is Chester's and
That's an
sign.
ampersand?
That's
Is
an
that supposed to
ampersand
be
from
an
Chester.
ampersand? Well, you
Yep.
know what? My ampersands look about that way.
Yeah. I'm used to seeing so many of these signs from him. I'm like, yep, that's his and. And he continues, after he will not come for some time. Again, please phone Lizzie so she will know the arrangements. Love, Papa. And his love is very interesting because the E is always like an uppercase E connected to the V. And then he always does this like dash and like a hyphen after it. Why? I don't know, but that's always there whenever he signs, whether it's his letters or his penny postal cards. So
kind of like when you write a check and you go to kind of like, yeah, that's kind of what it looks like.
Yeah.
Okay, hold on 1 second. Yeah. Please tell Lizzie that Frank has postponed. If you are on the audio channels right now, I implore you to just come to the YouTube channel and look at this. It's so funny. After he will not come for some time, please phone Lizzie. Okay, so I guess Frank is not coming to Lacona and he will not come for some time. I wonder why.
He's probably tired. I gotta be honest. Like, he's probably like, okay, we're past like the strenuous time. Frank has a lot to do at work. He's rising in the ranks at Western Bell, the telephone company, and yeah, I think he's just focusing in. And it's heading into the summer, just like everybody else. He's got his family. His wife is pregnant. He wants to be home with Maida, and yeah.
So they have their quarter dozen kids?
The quarter dozen kids, right.
They have their quarter dozen, and then it's going to be a third?
It is.
That's so fun. I like it, but props to you, Alley Cat, for this was just a very short little postcard.
Sometimes it's crammed together. It is very crammed together, and it's a page or two of writing.
It's tough. It's tough. But that, yeah. So I'm sure that there's probably a learning curve with the way that he writes. So that's fun. Yeah. So we learned that after Easter, no Frank.
No Frank. Right.
Oh, well. But our next letter is a sweetie letter. Oh, it's a sweetie letter. It's a nice one. It's a nice size. And she writes it the very next day.
363 North Main Street, Doylestown, Pennsylvania, April 18th, 1952. Dear Mama and Papa, and everyone else who may be interested, I've been expecting almost momentarily a letter from Papa lowering my ears, clear to hear, for not having written to acknowledge the letters containing the bribe for Lewis, and the package containing the fat medicine, as Lewis calls it, and his lying hen. But here's the old excuse. We've been sick. As I'm in a great big hurry, I shall not try to answer those letters at this time. I have carefully laid them away, one on top of the other, so that they might be properly answered, and be the good Lord willin', I shall get them answered in a day or two, but thought I'd take a brief minute to tell you why the delay and my sudden lapse in letter writing. Must say, though, I've enjoyed being bombarded by letters from Papa and Jeanne so often, and aim to give you a good answer to further encourage your letters. But Lewis got just dreadfully sick on Monday at about noon, as we were on the way over to Elizabeth and G-Mom to take Bobby's Easter basket and get Lewis's in return. I had to strip the bed a couple of times as he vomited so much and ran a very high temperature. I managed to maintain a decently active head this time, gave the usual treatment of aspirin, sulfa, alcohol rub, and enema to take the temperature down, was only moderately successful in that respect, but I decided to sweat him through the night and, if necessary, take him to the Navy doctors, as their fee is for free. In the morning, he seemed some better. I was encouraged and decided I was doing all right. Since then, he has had an up-and-down fever and nauseated only part of the time, and seemingly all right at others. He had Easter vacation on Monday and Tuesday. I kept him in bed both days, and following Papa's rule about keeping him home a day longer than you think necessary, I kept him home on Wednesday when school resumed. He seemed pretty well and didn't complain much, but Thursday he said his eyes were hurting, and so since his temperature had come up again, I went to school and got his books and brought them home, hoped he'd be able to go this morning, but today we found the rash, and I guess he's taken the measles from the other half-dozen in his class who have them. Well, he has kept me busy in running up and downstairs, and since there was much icky bedding to be taken care of, along with nursing, etc., I just didn't get my nose away from the grindstone to write to you as expected. And as I should have. I'm sorry Mama has found the mailbox empty after so many trips, but hope to make it up to you in a day or two when things kinda quiet down so I can. There is much to write about if I'm to answer your questions as I want to and comment on all your letters. I felt you might be worrying, at least wondering why you hadn't heard from me, and so shall send this poorly written note to explain and reassure. I have not called a doctor, and since I called in to the school to give them the word, they will notify the health officer, and I think that is all that will be necessary. I have read the Merck manual carefully, had done all they prescribed anyway, and with it as a guide, I'll just pretend I'm the doctor and collect the fee myself. Or how would that look? So, who cares? Shall watch for any complications, but as he is better this morning, temp down to 100.4, compared to 103.4, I feel quite sure he is on the mend. Hope so, anyway. I'm sending a box to the kids. Sister, you can kick these shoes around for a while. I'm tired of stepping over them, myself. And if you cannot wear them, perhaps Mama can find somebody in her parishioners who might put them to good use. But of course, I hope they will be fine for you. There is also an egg for the kids, and I enclose a self-styled poem for an apology for its late arrival. Papa, you just wait a day or two for answers to all these questions. I'll try to get at them in a hurry and answer all your letters. Likewise, Jeanne, and send along copies to the clan. Enjoyed Aunt Rosanna's letter, and shall try to get a note written to her. But do you have an idea how much time I spend in writing letters as it is? Will keep you posted as to the health of the kid and the general activities as best I can, but must stop for now. Love to each of you. Sweetie.
So she did it again, and I have to comment on this.
Mm-hmm.
She apologizes. Hold on, I'm going to find it. She apologizes to Chester for not answering a letter.
Mm-hmm.
Where she talked about a bribe. Where is that?
Oh, it's right at the beginning. Yeah. Containing the bribe for Lewis and the package containing the fat medicine.
Okay, so she did. In the previous letter, she's like, I got that with the bribe in it. I just received, here it is. I just received Papa's letter postmarked April 5th. Thank you for the bribe money, Papa. So she did.
She did.
She did. Oh, that makes me mad when he makes her feel bad.
Yeah, and she genuinely forgot because here goes her Easter vacation, which is why a little earlier I wanted to know it was on the 13th. Lewis is sick. So
the measles.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
So he had mumps. Good, that's gone. Measles is a little bit more of a different animal because it does mess up your immune system for quite some time after you recover. You do have lifetime immunity from measles, though, once you get it. And the younger you get it, the better. So this is good. She has already had measles.
Yep.
So I'm going to guess that Lou probably did as well.
Probably.
Most likely. So she's able to take care of him without getting sick. But she's also getting a little bit of the taste of what Maida had to deal with.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. Just in the more recent letters that we were going through. And also, she's mentioning all these fun medicines, including sulfa. So, insert disclaimer here. Special disclaimer. The medicines and other medical treatments noted in these historical letters from the 1950s are specific to Sweetie's story and might not be recommended today, or are even more regulated than they were so many years ago. As such, none of the medical information contained within these letters is to be construed as medical advice. Talk to your doctor. Thank you for your attention to this message. Now, back to the show. And yeah, so, well, there went the Easter vacation. I like that there's this health officer they're reporting into, and that's how she knows. Because by the time she picks up the books, I bet the teacher, Mrs. Halk, is probably like, yeah, we're out like half the class right now.
Well, the public health offices are still something that we have today.
Yep.
You know, that so that we're able to like track these kind of like outbreaks and things like that, which is important. So, but yeah, what a horrible, horrible thing. Like, I feel bad. So she's definitely going to send those shoes to sister. She's definitely going to, she has some things going on she has to answer Chester about. But what an awful Easter.
I know.
The Easter that poor Lewis got measles.
But she's also sending an egg. This is not the first time that we've had eggs going back and forth between Doylestown and Pennsylvania and Lacona, Iowa, and the outskirts. My mom actually was commenting on it when we had that one letter where Chester and Laura had sent eggs to Sweetie, and she's like, "Are they seriously sending eggs from Iowa to Pennsylvania?" And I was like, "Yeah." But now we have a special. Sweetie's sending Easter eggs to Lizzie, and as a result, we get a little story about that in the poem. Apologies. I had a serious talk one day, not very long ago, with a certain little bunny friend that you and I both know. He stopped for just a minute as he rushed along his way. We didn't have much time to chat. Here's what he had to say. I really don't know how, he said. I'll get done all I should. Color eggs, take Easter joy to kids who've been real good. I'm really not complaining. I love the work, he said. But at the end of each long day, I just drop into my bed. I almost felt quite sorry for Mr. Easter Rabbit. But I can tell you this, there's no other way he'd have it. I told him all about you kids, how much we think of you. When I asked him for a special gift, he said he'd see what he could do. He must have been real busy, 'cause something happened funny. I guess he asked a friend to help, and he was some dumb bunny. Or else old Mr. Rabbit, as he worked to get things fixed, was just too busy or too tired, and he got the orders mixed. The eggs I ordered sent to you were left here by mistake, and so I wondered what to do. Now, what steps should I take? Let's just pretend that they were there when you woke up that day. Just make believe he did it right, and enjoy them anyway. So I sent them anyway, even though they're late. Bunny said next year he'd see you got them on the date. I can really sign this one for you. By me. Sometime after Easter. I love that poem so much.
She should have wrote children's books.
Yeah, we're going to have enough to do a little book of Sweetie's poetry at the end of everything. There's two little sections here. First of all, this poem is amazing if you ever have a belated Easter present to a kid. So it's a very niche category, but still, Hallmark. But there's one line in particular. This little line. Color eggs take Easter joy to kids who've been real good. That's just a lovely little line. And you know, we get so much poetry and so much rhyming and songs at Christmas time. There's very little actually out there for the Easter Bunny, which is fascinating. But yeah, the whole story of just the late eggs. Fantastic.
Oh, when she rhymed rabbit with have it, I was like, yeah. I like that one. That one. It's nice to have some Sweetie poetry.
Mm-hmm.
And honestly, it's nice to have Sweetie poetry because she wouldn't be writing it if she was depressed.
No.
You know, she's in a good mood. Mm-hmm. She's like, she's learning how to like live with Miss Darst, and she's learning about what she needs to do, and she's like chipping away at the work. And even though she's complaining about it, which I mean, of course, she's entitled. I'm not going to take that away from her. Even though she is having, you know, complaining and being downtrodden about her house and stuff, she's in a good place.
She is. And I'm pleased to report, if you're enjoying the poetry of the previous episode, so if you missed episode 107, you should definitely listen into that one. I believe, yes, episode 109, the next episode after this one, we're going to get more Sweetie poetry. She's going through a thing right now. She's going to write a bunch of poems.
This is her poet phase.
This is her poet phase. So it's like a little trilogy of episodes featuring her poetry right at the end of each. And with that, really, that's all there is to this episode. Short and sweet. Jamie, we'll see everybody next week.